The way you tell your story can change your life. Reframing a narrative to serve a better purpose is something that our guest today has done very well. Jesmane Boggenpoel is an experienced business executive, a former head of business engagement for Africa at the World Economic Forum. She is an author of the book, My Blood Divides and Unites. From my perspective, a book centered around her voyage into reframing her own life story. She's so accomplished, one does not quickly reconcile the township girl we meet at the beginning of the book to the businesswoman we see before us today. Jesmane, welcome to Wealth at Work. And I'm going to jump straight into things. How did your upbringing influence how you approach investments and in particular wealth, both the positive and the negative?
Hi, Charlie. I'm so excited to be on your show. And in my childhood, which you would have read about in my book, my dad had a nervous breakdown when we were young. He was working away from home on a construction contract in Namibia, and it was an exhaustive contract, and it triggered his first nervous breakdown. And after a series of stays in mental institutions, he was unable to return to construction carpentry. So my mom became the main provider of our family, and we lived in poverty in a township called Westbury in Johannesburg, which is known for negative things like gangsterism and violence and crime and drugs. And that did shape me and my view of wealth. Firstly, I have an identical twin sister, and we were both the top students at school, and I felt, this smart card is my ticket out of here, and I really need to study, and that education can break generations of poverty, which it did, because then years later, I was able to buy my parents a home in a safer neighborhood. And so I attached education to wealth creation, and it was a game changer for our family, with myself going the CA route, my twin sister qualifying as a medical doctor. And then there were also other things like seeing my dad get sick, not being able to work in the field that he used to work. He then ended up working for about 17 years at a place for people for disabilities, and my mom became the primary provider. So I also recognize that a woman needs to be educated and needs to be able to financially provide for family, because that was modeled to me by my mother. There wasn't the figure of my dad and a male being the provider.
So in your book, you actually say that accumulating wealth is not about buying fancy cars, and you've demonstrated that by only being on your second car to date. So what is it about for you?
At the core, it's about having options. I felt that my parents, in our poverty, the options were so limited and constrained, and I didn't want to have those constraints upon me. And part of the options is the ability to travel to off the beaten track countries, which I like. Mongolia or Svalbard is an island of Norway, the closest point to the North Pole that I've been to. So I like those exotic locations in the pre-COVID world, and hopefully I'll do more of those types of travels when we overcome the pandemic. And growth, being able to upskill myself. I've read a lot of books on technology, serve on a technology board, chair a fintech board, and I was very intentional that I needed to upskill myself in the technology space. And with resources, you can travel to those conferences and get the right insight that can help you upskill. And I don't want to create the impression that I'm saying, live in abject poverty. If you do have the resources, it is nice to have comforts, but in terms of what is really important to me on wealth creation, it's that I have options in terms of where I can travel, where I can live, how I can upskill and grow myself.
I think that's absolutely incredible. I really admire you for that. As a fellow person who loves traveling, I think the pandemic is it's killing me in that sense. I'm desperate for some international travel, but yeah, anyway, it will happen.
Is that 10% of our profits go to AWCA, the Association for the Mentoring, the Bursaries, the Leadership Training for young African women who are aspiring to become CAs. So it's, building an ecosystem. It's about creating wealth, but also about giving back.
Going back to your book, My Blood Divides and Unites is a topic all on its own. I must admit, I read that title so many times before I actually even opened the book the first time. But the next question I want to ask actually has to do with your book. And I want to go into something that you mentioned in your book. The one thing is that there's such a strong emphasis in your book on your family and shared growth. But you don't limit your focus to your family. You speak about the work that you do with AIH, as well as some other efforts by some colleagues. What is AIH about, and how are you using it as a tool for economic transformation?
So AIH stands for African Women Chartered Accountants Investment Holdings. Initially, the African Women Chartered Accountants Association was set up to empower young girls to pursue the chartered accountant qualification, as there were not many African women going that path. And it provides leadership, upskilling, mentorship, training. It is training linked to Duke University in the US. And as an offshoot of this, the AIH was set up, and we had fundraising exercise going around to all the African women, asking if they wanted to participate and take shares in AIH. And through that, we raised capital and were able to hire a team on the ground. And I've been on the board since AIH was set up in 2008. And I'm also an investor, so it's an important vehicle for me for wealth creation. What we also do is that 10% of our profits go to AWCA, the Association for the Mentoring, the Bursaries, the Leadership Training for young African women who are aspiring to become CAs. So it's, building an ecosystem. It's about creating wealth, but also about giving back. Our roots and our qualification is important to us, but we don't just want to be a small group of African women CAs. We want to scale that so that opportunity and access is available to a wider portion of our population. And we've just recently raised a private equity fund, and I'm a principal in our private equity fund, which is also giving us now access to more money for when we need to do deals, so that we do have
you have a pool. You have a ready pool. Let's just say yes. Let me leave it at that. I could say a mouthful, but I won't. Because yes, we do have a time limit for the show, and we've reached the end of the show. Can you believe it? So thanks again for being a guest today. I really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to having you back on the show.
Thanks, Charlie. I'd love chatting to you, and welcome coming back again.
Thank you for watching Wealth at Work. We look forward to sharing more stories and profiling other dynamic entrepreneurs and business people. Please like and share and leave a comment telling us what topics you would like to see next. From me, Jolly Mokorosi, thank you and goodbye.
You're not the only one that fires their financial advisor because there's just something that's missing, you know? And that something is important because some things you don't want to explain. In South Africa now, people have been retrenched, and you'll find that the very individual that's retrenched, the first thing that they think about when they get that package is how they want to fix their home or how they want to buy a property somewhere. If you approach this in a linear way and say, is this a good financial decision? Of course, the answer is going to be no, it's not very good timing. But if you understand that I've never had a home, or I grew up in a not so comfortable upbringing, and so that's why having 4 walls that I can call my own is important to me. Those kinds of nuances and understanding are important.